Welcome to Season 12, Episode 2 of the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. In this episode, you may notice things that are a wee bit different in that there is no Stevie Boy with us today, but we have an extra special co-host for the very first time. We have the Yorkshire Correspondent, Mel Sykes. How you doing, Mel?
I'm good, thanks. How are you and your Tash?
Me and my Tash are just bra, we're just fine.
Oh, good.
And then we're also joined today by Marcus Smith from InnerFight, who we're going to speak. I'm just saying that because I can see the words on the screen. But we're going to speak quite a bit about that. But I am going to let Mel do her thing and bring in Marcus, and we'll just get the chat going. Over to you, Mel.
So welcome, Marcus. Welcome to Young Arts Run Free podcast. Nice to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, no, anytime. I know you've got me instead of Stephen today, so you might be a little bit disappointed, but so I just wondered if we could start off by asking, who is Marcus Smith and what do our listeners need to know about you?
I probably don't need to know anything, but I'll try and make something interesting so that we keep them listening. No, thanks a lot, guys, for having me. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, and this is actually related to some of the questions that you sent me to prepare for. The question of who you are is something that I actually focus a lot on with people, and I look at it through a couple of different lenses. Essentially, I am just a human being who has found something that gives them purpose. So the first pillar of me is that I'm purpose driven. The second pillar is I work with people, and for over 20 years now I've coached people, and despite what a lot of people might say about me, I actually do like people. So people focused, having conversations like this is a big part of my personality. I do like spending disproportionate amounts of time alone, but I also like being with people. Another couple of pillars which I think are important and maybe give people an idea is I believe in being what I call holistically ready, which I always want to be in a position where if someone says to me, we're going to go on an adventure, it could be anything. It could be a 100K ultra run and it's in 3 or 4 months. I want to be 3 or 4 months away from being ready to do that. The same if someone said to me, we're going to go to a CrossFit competition and we'd really love you to be involved, or it's something that just resonates me. I want to have a level of fitness and level of health and readiness that I'm no more than 3 or 4 months away from something. And that really leads to the last two pillars of who I think I am, which this constantly gets refined. And the more I run, ride, and do ultras, the more it gets refined. But in order to be those people or that person, I'm always learning. And the final bit is I always try and live my life, which is not always easy because I sit at the end of every day and I'll ask myself, did I live today? And that's quite a subjective measure. And if you don't have a good day in some way, that can actually bring it down. However, I sit and I take time at the end of every day. Did I live my life today? And fortunately, most of the time I get the answer yes. And I figure out why. So that's a very long-winded introduction, but that's a little bit about who I am.
So at the end of each day, when you do you just do it like internalize, like journaling, or do you write it down somewhere, or how do you go through that process at the end of each day?
I'll always write it down. I actually use, this year I moved over to Remarkable, which is this tablet that they got really aggressive online at the start of the year, and I got absolutely sold on it probably through social media. You know what it's like. Start of the year, write all your goals down. Instagram adverts, mate. And I was like, well, it's not as bad as a shit backpack or a pair of trousers that don't fit. I actually might use it. And I used to be very, very sort of pen and paper kind of guy. Moleskin was my life. I've had plenty of Moleskin books and I'd write in there. And with Remarkable, I just write every day. And it's not, some days I journal a little bit more than others, but I'll sit down. I think people talk a lot, don't they, about morning rituals and sort of a morning process that they'll follow. But I've always believed that in able to have a good morning ritual, you have to have a good evening ritual. If you don't have a good evening ritual, you're not having a good sleep. If you don't have a good sleep, even with the best will in the world and the nicest cup of coffee in paradise, you're going to sit there and feel like shit. So in the evening, it's dinner. Sometimes I'll go back to my phone. I try not to, but some days, honestly, I love watching reels and stuff on Instagram. I think they're fucking hilarious. And if that's my wind down, like, I'm not watching, I don't watch Netflix and shit like that. And then I'll put my phone down and I'll just sit with my Remarkable. And I honestly, Mel, I keep it super simple. I'm like, what are the 3 things that were awesome today? And some people are not for this because they don't see the benefit in training the mind and the role of the conscious and subconscious mindset. The mind is just a muscle, just like any other muscle. We want to go running, we train the legs. If we want the mind to think positive thoughts and not to drop into negativity, we also have to train it. We have to create what's known as a positive stream of consciousness. So I'm looking at three things that went well today, and that answer that question, did I live? And always I'm looking at one thing tomorrow that I'm excited about. And that is a real double-edged sword, because a lot of time I'm like, I'll finish my writing on my Remarkable or on a bit of paper, and I've got that thought in my mind of what I'm excited about for tomorrow. And I'm literally saying to my wife, Holly, right, let's go to bed now. And she's like, what's wrong with you? I need to go to bed because I need to get to bed so then I can get to sleep so I can get up and do what I'm excited about tomorrow. It's like, and actually, this is actually true. I don't know if you can see it, but the thing that I'm excited about today on my Remarkable, it won't come up because of this stupid camera, is this podcast, Young Hearts Run Free podcast. I had a lot of cool things happening today, but I do a lot of cool things every day. And I was like, what's the one standout thing tomorrow? And it was, I actually just flicked to it as we were talking. I was like, what did I actually write last night? So that was it. So that's kind of the format that I use.
I think as well, more of my friends have started using journals and bin journaling this year. And I keep saying it's one of them things that I'll get into, but I've just never really got round to it. But I think the thing about getting sleep, if you can write everything down from that day, everything's out of your mind, which means then you're not getting into bed and thinking, what did I do today? Or what am I planning for tomorrow? You get a better sleep. And then, like you said, next day you're up starting your day right again. And you're off, aren't you?
It's true. Like there's obviously a lot of things around sort of sleep hygiene and in a lot of my sort of high performance coaching that I do, I work with people on that. But that is one of the biggest things. You've nailed it right there. If people are struggling with sleep, it's just clearing the mind a little bit. And we're from 2020 to 2024, we've just gone so fast, most of us. Like the world's got a lot faster and we're kind of always in a rush, and that doesn't work very well with the human operating system. So like you said, just to get stuff out of the brain onto a bit of paper, we're not going to forget about it. You'll generally, you won't sleep better if you still sleep with the lights on and your room's a tip, but you'll definitely sleep a little bit better than you were doing. So yeah, I'm fully on board with it. I think journaling's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's been around for such a long time. You know, when I was at school, what was it? Adrian Mole, Dear Diary, and all that kind of Filofax, all of that kind of stuff. And so, but actually, in a way, it's kind of quite cleansing, quite cathartic, isn't it? Those entries to Dear Diary sort of stuff. And then we got lost a little bit there, and maybe we were too cool to be spiritual because we're too cool being cool, and we lost touch of our spirituality in certain parts of, maybe in certain age brackets in life, or maybe just the early 2000s did that to us. I don't know if I'm speaking for the masses or not, but I see so many people coming back to it. And then I see that females are better than males. and especially us alpha males are like, what would I do that for? Like, come on, like I'm way too hard for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then they get into it, and I that's also why I start with people. I'm like, just use my 3-1 system, and that's what I call it. 3 wins for the day, one thing you're excited about, 1 word or 2 words, that's it. And that just leads to such cool things. And then they'll just like, I've just had this journal entry, or I've just had this, and that's all it is. It's just a clarity of thoughts. I've formalized it, I've put it on paper, and I just feel so good about what's going on in my life right now. And it just organizes it, which is beautiful, really.
And do you promote that so the athletes that you coach, is that part of your coaching
Yeah.
process to get them to do that?
Absolutely. And you can't hit everyone with that on day one. Some people need, and I think coaching's at an interesting stage, isn't it? Because ChatGPT can write the program, and if you're hyper aware, you've got some good knowledge, you're hyper aware of where you're at in your mental space and also your physical space, that's probably a really good solution for a lot of people,
Yeah.
because what ChatGPT is going to do, or ABC, or whatever chat you're using, it's going to take all the best programs and it's going to put it in a way that's best for you. So it's actually a really good program. But if you're not in touch with what's going on, and you need a bit of support, you need a bit of accountability, and a lot of people struggle to change things at the right time. That's what I see as some of the biggest things in running, especially, but in all sports as well. It's like, who helps me if a session hasn't gone well, and who helps me figure out why that session hasn't gone well, and that's what ChatGPT cannot do.
No personalization with it then.
Exactly. And that's what we're looking for. Like, we're trying to figure it. No one has the answer. And people, I'm fortunate. I get people that ask me to coach them, but it's a real journey. Like, it can take me a couple of years to figure someone out, or to help them figure themselves out. So these tools, I think, are super important.
And do you have a coach yourself that does that for you?
Yes and no. And the reason why it's a bit of a big half, I have 16 coaches working for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of very talented people in my environment every single day. I also have some friends who are coaches who were very high level athletes and have been coached at a very high level, and now coaches. So my answer here is, I leverage the tools around me depending on where I'm headed.
Mm-hmm.
So I generally don't have a coach on a permanent basis, and the reason I don't, there's a great book called The Untethered Soul, and this book talks a lot. Everything is from within. And the world now is very good at outsourcing. And I sort of become a black belt in it. I have 6 different VAs working for me and blah, 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 blah. Like, any task in my day that I think someone else can do better immediately gets outsourced. However, my own identity can never, ever be outsourced. So I can ask questions. I can get, like, right now I have some cycling goals I'm working towards. So a great friend of mine, former pro cyclist, turned cycling coach, he's the man helping me with my program.
Yeah.
And we'll sit and we'll have a conversation. And sometimes I actually need him to write it for me. But sometimes I just need, like I said, coaching is people focused. We have to have a conversation, and it's as simple as, and I think this might resonate with the audience. It's like, just tell me how you're eating, that kind of question, and then I'm sat on a call and I'm going, okay, this is what I'm eating pre-workout. This is what I'm eting during my workout. And he's like, do you think that's fueling you properly? And then you just go, oh, fuck.
Yeah, you don't realize that you're not doing it until someone points it out.
Until someone points it out.
Yeah.
But again, it's taken I'm 46 years old this year. I've been running since I was 5 years old. It's taken a long time to get here.
Yeah,
And
it does.
I've used a lot of coaches and I've made a shit ton of mistakes. And I'm far from the rounded coach and I'm far from a rounded athlete. I say this to most of the people I coach in the nicest possible way. We're all just rank amateurs here, but we're doing this to get a little bit better at life. We run because it makes us a better parent. It makes us a better husband, a wife, whatever we are. That's also why we run, because we discover these amazing things about ourselves through going through this process. Like, none of us really, well, I hope some of your listeners are going to the Olympics. And if they are, that's absolutely amazing. And, you know, some listeners will be trying to qualify for Team GB, and that's absolutely amazing. But 99% of the listeners and 99% of the people that I come across are going to work on Monday morning.
Yeah, they just want to better themselves.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And
Sorry,
that's...
John, I've been blabbering on. He's waiting.
John's like
You can
sat
tell
there
he's
with
waiting.
like, I want to get in. Come on, John.
I think
Let's go.
thank you both for welcoming me in. This is officially the longest I've not spoken since I was 18, I think. I've already got the title of the podcast. Did I live my life today? What a question that is at the end of every day. I love that. Thank you so much. And Marcus, we often talk about golden nuggets. If we're only 10 minutes in and already it's quite phenomenal, some of the things that people will be asking of themselves by listening to what you've said. So thank you so much for that. I think the logical place for me to go next is for you to tell us about InnerFight. You mentioned you've got a number of coaches at your disposal, or work with a number of coaches, and you can leverage what you need. But do you want to say a bit about InnerFight, how it began, what it's all about?
Sure.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for the opportunity, John. And I'll try and keep it brief, but the more I think of it, I think it's a lovely story. 2005, I was playing rugby and I heard a guy talking to a personal trainer on the sideline, and they were arguing about the price of personal training. And without even thinking about it, I turn around, I go, "Can you guys shut the fuck up? I'll take care of you, mate." And I've never met this guy before in my life. And he was massive. He was 135, 140 kilos, 6'4". And literally, it's the first time I'd laid my eyes on him. And I was like, oh, another case of, Marcus opening his mouth, talking too much without even looking at what's going on. And I used to be really bad. And I was in my bad phase at this point. I'm trying to get a bit better, despite having spoken for the last 20 minutes nonstop. Anyway, I said to this bloke, I said, "Where do you live?" And he said a place that I thought it was about 3 or 4 Ks from where I was living here in Dubai at the time. And I said, "Right, I'll see you outside your house at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning." And when I said it, I had no clue what I was going to do. And you could see this weird look in his face because what I'd actually done is I'd removed you can look at it 2 ways. I'd either removed his pain point, which was money, or his excuse, which was money. And his face was a bit blank. Mine was a bit blank. And, you didn't swap numbers and send WhatsApps. You just said, "I'll be there." It was 2005, which is actually quite close, but still quite far away when it comes to communication. And get there, I was like, well, on the way home, I was like, this is actually awesome, because the worst case scenario, I run 3K there, I try and make a guy a bit better, and I run 3K home. So I get a 6K run, and I might change this guy's life. And get there, he's uber keen, and literally it's pitch black. And he said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "You see that lamppost?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "We're going to run to that one." He's looking at me like, "Are you kidding?" I said, "Yeah, let's go." And it was literally lamppost distance. And we went lamppost to lamppost. We walked one, we ran one, we walked one, we ran one. And his heart rate's at 190, and we weren't running very fast, and got him back to his house. And I said, "That's it for today, mate." Literally 15 minutes. And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if we continue, you're probably going to have a heart attack, and you've got a wife and kid inside, I want you to go inside. I want you to have a look around, have a think. Don't call me until at least lunchtime and figure out what you want to do. I'm here to help you. And I ran away. I shook his hand, looked him straight in the eyes, and he's a big guy, so he buried my hand in his hand. And literally lunchtime, 1 o'clock or 1 minute past 1 or 1 minute to 1, he'll tell the story in a different way. He's still a client of mine today. He said, I want to change my life. And I was like, fuck, that's insane. And that's where it all started. And I trained him for a long time, or a number of months, made great progress. A lot of the rugby boys saw what was going on, and the whole thing just started to snowball. They said, can you come? Can I come? Can I be part of your group? Can I help you? Or can you help me? And we just started this. It was just a training group, and it was based on community, based on support. At that time, CrossFit was coming up. I was also running. We're playing with different workouts. We're training in different ways. We're quite good at rugby. And the whole thing just sort of started to snowball until 2008. And we officially launched as a brand. End of 2009, I was working for Nike, and I ditched my corporate career. I'd done a few years with Reebok, 5 years with Adidas. And I'd moved from Adidas to Nike, and I'd literally been there about 3 months. I was getting paid a shit ton of money, and I was empty. And I said, that's it. Within 10 months, I am going to make InnerFight my life. And all I did, and I still have the piece of paper, took out a piece of paper and I put my expenses, my income, and what makes me really happy. You have to look at it, I think, in a way like that sometimes. That's the way that my mind works, because I had Holly, my wife, and I didn't want her to think I was just, an idiot and just going purely on feeling. So I like maths. So, and I also like to make sure that we can eat at night and that we live in a house that's comfortable. We don't need a lot. If you saw my house, you'd ask me where the furniture was, but and I do like some nice things. I like buying expensive bikes. Don't worry about it, guys. I'm not I'm not a complete yeah. And I put this piece of paper together and I said, let's do it. Worst thing that can happen is in a year or 2 years, I set my threshold for money. I said, if it gets below this, I'll go back to work. And that's like 15 years ago, and it's incredible what we do. We now have a facility. We're a CrossFit gym, and we're a whole endurance setup where I'm proud that we have 16 coaches. We have coaches around the world. We have an endurance setup in Ireland. We have an endurance setup in New Zealand, and the coaches have changed people's lives, and our vision is to make people better at life. That's what we try and do. And we hire based on people, not on positions, which sometimes is detrimental to the business. It's very hard sometimes when we have overheads and stuff, but I won't hire a coach just so that he can coach a certain number of people so that I can pay my electricity bill. I think that's bullshit. I hire someone whose values are aligned with ours, who fits our criteria of a coach, and also understands what we call the InnerFight way. So how we want to do things, how we want to create community, how we want to deliver world-class coaching, how we want to have impact in what we're doing. And fortunately, and I'm uber grateful for it, there's a whole bunch of people that have been willing to part with some of their hard-earned money for our services and allow us to have the life that we have. And to be honest, it's fucking incredible. And I'm
How
very
did you
grateful.
come up with name InnerFight?
This is so funny, right? This whole thing should have been called 4th Street Training. Imagine how shit that would have been.
Yeah, that doesn't have the same ring to it at all.
It's terrible. So the truth of the story is, and honestly, this is like most of the good stuff that we've done is not my idea at all. The reason why I set up the brand is because a guy said, write a book. And I said, no. I said, let's do a website because everything's going digital. He said, oh, I wouldn't mind helping you with that. And so I went around to his house one night and we sat for about 4 hours. We're like, what's the difference? There's training companies, this, that, and the other. And we're like, it's mental. It's going on in the head. And all this shit. And sometimes I'm a little bit impatient. And I was like, mate, just fuck it. We're sat on 4th Street. His street was 4th Street. My street was 3rd Street. We lived like in this area that's close to each other. I said, let's just call it 4th Street Training. He's like, mate, that's so shit. I'm like, yeah, but we don't have anything else. And I'm one of these people, I used to be one of these people that was like, if we're going into a meeting to come out with an outcome, which the outcome that we wanted was a brand name, we have to come out with this outcome. I'm now a lot more relaxed. I'll go in and I'll be like, okay, that's cool. Let's just go away and think about it. And he said no. I used to pick him up to go to the gym every morning, and he walked down the stairs and my car window was open and I could just see this big grin on his face. And he goes, it's called InnerFight. And I'm like, yeah, fuck, of course it's called InnerFight. That's exactly what we were saying for like 3 hours last night. So it was his name. And sadly, he's no longer involved. In 2011 or 2010, when I sort of quit my job, we parted ways. We're in touch infrequently, but we're on pretty good terms. But yeah, it was him.
Lucky
But
he didn't trademark it, otherwise he could have.
yeah. So yeah, that's how we got to InnerFight.
Can I jump? I should have maybe done this in an intro, but Mel does a bit of cycling as well. It's one of her passions, and Mel's done triathlon as well.
Yeah,
it's
a while ago when I could swim.
Yeah, but you mentioned about the number of coaches that you have, Marcus, and it's a global experience. Which InnerFight is. Are these athletes in all sorts of different disciplines? What's the story here?
Yeah. It's interesting and it's quite cool because it comes back to running. In 2000, it was about in 2009, a lady contacted me and she'd heard about sort of different things that I'd done with people and with training and with mindset and stuff, and she sent me an email. She said, I'm doing it's Racing the Planets race, and it was 250k, and one of their races, I think there's 4 across the year, or there used to be, was in the Sahara Desert. And I said to her, yeah, come, let's have a conversation. And she explained it to me, and I'm literally just sat there going, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, she's gonna do, and it's self-supported and all this, and you know, I'd heard of triathlon, I'd raced triathlon, I knew what Ironman was, but I'd never heard of this like ultra stuff. And it's kind of how I do things to this day. I just looked at her and I said, listen, I have no idea about this, but it sounds absolutely incredible. I said, I believe I have some skills that will help you, and everything else, I'm willing to listen, learn, and I'm willing to go on this journey with you if you're willing to give me that opportunity. She just turned around to me and she said, that was exactly what I was looking for. And I was like, wow. And that was basically when our endurance section was born. So I coached her to that. And we know what the industry's like. If someone helps you one way, then, I mean, that's pretty much how I'm with you guys today through Kaz, and she got me through Keith, and Keith got me through, you know, and it all just sort of snowballed down. And we hired our first endurance coach in 2011, and yeah, and it's not, we coach humans, I think, more than sports. And this is what is very interesting for me, is a lot of people think that, let's take, for example, entering a 5K will fix a certain pain point in their life. And it may do, but what we're trying to figure out is what the real pain is. And it's quite interesting with running because of how running was used in the 80s and the 90s in the education system as punishments. Actually, 80% of the population fucking hate it. Because they're just told, like, okay, you've been a little shithead in PE, go and run out in the cold. And I remember I was the same at school, but I wanted to go and run out in the cold. So I would purposely be a little dickhead and get sent out into the cold. And I went to school actually close to where you are, Mel, up in Yorkshire, just outside York, where,
Oh, right.
yeah, where it's freezing cold. So, but I managed to make this nice
Freezing
relationship.
cold in summer.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and people come to running, and for a lot of people, we have to let them go to the 5K and the 10K because that's part of the journey. But I more find that people are like, they come to this realization, they're like, and the number of people that have turned around to me and said, this has got nothing to do with running, has it? And I'm like, of course it doesn't. But you can't tell someone that on the first day. Like someone messages you and said, can you coach me to 10K? I'll be like, nah, but I'll completely destroy your mind and then help you build it up. That's essentially what we do as run coaches, good run coaches, right?
Yeah. And do you find that now, even in your business, since you set it up to now, more and more people are coming to you and your team for the endurance training and the mind training for endurance events rather than the fitness side of it? They're coming because they want to complete these longer and longer events.
Yeah, yes and no. Like a lot of people come for events, but a lot of people, because we have quite a big community, they see people just getting better in various areas of their life. And we're actually having, which I think is more healthy, we have more people now than ever before just training to be healthy and good at life rather than always trying to, from one race to another race to another race. And that was one of the things that I saw in the early days of triathlon. I actually went and watched a lot of triathlons to try and figure out what we could bring to the market. And one thing that I noticed was no one was having a good time. And I'm like, this is really flipping weird. Like, okay. And then I'd sit and chat to them and I'd ask them questions. It's like, so you train 15 hours a week? Yeah, I fucking hate it. Okay, but you train 50, you choose to do, yeah. Gets me out the house. Okay, and then it goes back to, well, what's the pain point here? Being in the house? Do you know what I mean? Because there's other ways to, yeah, but if I wasn't doing this, I'd be in a pub. So there's a problem. No, there's no problem with alcohol. I'm like, oh, hang on, and I was like, this is just crazy. Like people are not having fun. And I was like, how do we make endurance sports fun and give it meaning and get people to races and happy on the start line? And I've had this similar experience, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have, like checkpoints in long races. Generally, people are just assholes to the staff. It's like, just be nice to them. They're volunteers. Without these people, there is no race. And this is what I do with one of the secrets for my backyard guys is you're on the start line with one whistle to go and you're smiling from ear to ear. They're the rules.
Yeah, and if you've coached them properly and they have listened and done the work, then the event is the enjoyable part of it. All the pain and everything should be in the training, so that when you do come to the event, it's not easy, but it's enjoyable and you're happy to be there doing it rather than hating every second.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with going back to sort of the ChatGPT example about coaching. Like, your pace is important to me. The heart rate data is important to me because the scientific side is an important piece of the puzzle, but I'll manage that. What's important to me is how you felt about that session. And I hear it often with people that are training, I hate doing X type of session, but I do it every week. I'm like, okay, so what's actually happening here? If we go back to what we're saying about creating a positive stream of consciousness, every time you see that session, there's negative thoughts, which is negative emotions, which is developing a further negative relationship with the sport of running. But you're paying a coach. Yeah, but I have to do what my coach says. Okay, but have you told the coach that you actually don't like that? And why don't we like it? And a lot of it can just drill down to the fact that, you know, you've put it on a Tuesday morning, and Tuesdays at work are super busy for me. So I'm too stressed out with work. And I've done that with clients. I've
Yeah,
just
and
moved a
instead of
session
saying
one day.
something, instead of actually just saying, look, I don't like doing it on a Tuesday, but if I could move it, and that's if you get the right people that you're working with, then you can work around them. And that is the difference between having a coach and firing some off chat GBT that says on a Thursday you've got to do this speed session, and you're getting them from work absolutely knackered, and you're trying to do 1K repeats. You're gonna hate it, aren't
exactly.
you?
You hate
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And then you create this just this awful relationship with, again, something that it's there to make you better. And that's what I'm like, is this making me a better human being? That's what we've got to keep asking ourselves. Like, am I getting better? Am I physically better? Am I mentally, emotionally better? Is my relationship indoors with husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, children, are they getting better or not? And if not, then we have to make changes.
Yeah.
It's the same. If people say to me, I can't train on weekends, I'm okay, no worries. Why not? Well, because I take my kids and I do this. Music to my ears, you know, the best case scenario. Sweet. Can we get this training? And then we actually figure out that 100-mile race isn't actually for them, you know, but a little bit of training, 8 hours of training, and to be able to maybe during school holidays when they have a bit more time, then ramp up training and then do something a bit longer. Then that works, you know? So I think a lot of time people's goal setting as well it's tough. And sometimes we're influenced by social media, we're influenced by our environment, we're influenced by what we think will make us happy. But I think real coaching and real self-awareness is actually trying to lead people to what does make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, this is awesome. Our listeners are going to absolutely love that. I'm loving it. The chat that's coming in and that coach-athlete relationship is fascinating. And it just shows you it's about that being honest, isn't it? And having that honest conversation rather than just that. There's definitely an accountability when you've got a coach. When you have a coach, that's what encourages people to do certain sessions, but speak about the sessions as well. So I love that. Can't this could be a 6-hour episode, right? but can we? And we're going to definitely put a link in the show notes to Fight for Every Breath, Marcus. This is a 10-second preparation time for you to be ready for this. We'll definitely put a link to that video. I've watched it, loved it, and I've shared it with people already. But I'd like you to take us to 2018 to describe what you've said on your website is a truly amazing experience. Do you want to take us to there and talk us through that?
Yeah, I won't give you the full version of what happened. I'll try and give a little bit of context because I think the learnings is better listening rather than the story in itself, maybe. The long story short, in 2017, I set a goal, talking about not setting too big of goals, but anyway, I set a goal that was to race 4 ultra cycling races, which were on 4 different continents during 2018. No one had done it before. It was going to be a world record, which didn't mean a whole heap to me, but it was quite a nice sort of touch to have on it. And I trained very hard on my bicycle. They were bike races. I trained very hard on my bicycle. And 2 weeks out from the first race, I was out training and I was in the wrong place. I was undertaking a truck, which then subsequently sort of came in front of me. I hit the front end of the truck and then I hit a brick wall at 54 kilometers an hour. Sorry, it's in kilometers, guys. I know you're still in miles, but
We're working miles, but we'll let you
that
off.
that's a little bit fucking quick, basically. That's the bottom line. There's a weird stat that I found that if you're hit by a motor car traveling under 30 kilometers an hour, you've got a 90% chance of living. If it's traveling between 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, you've got 50% chance of living, and anything over like 40 or 45 kilometers an hour, you've only got 10% chance of living. So yeah, I was over the threshold. And what it did is it left me in quite a unique position. I was an hour and a half from a hospital. On impact, I'd later learned that I'd broken 7 ribs, shattered my left scapula, and they call it, the technical word is a lung hemothorax. It's basically where your lung sort of on the impact explodes. So you can't breathe. You can breathe, but it's very, very difficult. It's almost like, the only way I can really explain it is when you're winded playing a sport as a child, it's like that, but like it's pretty real because it doesn't get better very fast. And I'm an hour and a half from any medical care. I'm obviously here today. I made it through. I spent 3 days in intensive care, which in itself is like, it's a really messed up place to be, because you're either on the way out or they're not really sure whether you're on the way out or not. You know, there's not many healthy people in intensive care, and no one knows anything. They're keeping you there under strict observation, and unfortunately, it doesn't go well for people who are quite well conditioned and have low heart rates, because you're all rigged up to these heart rate monitors. And if your heart rate drops below 50 beats, it's all hell breaks loose. All the sirens are on. So every few minutes, you know, old idiot over here has a resting heart rate of about 37, 38, and bang, I'm just like, fucking, you turn this off. Anyway, and I was sat in hospital. I was actually, and it comes nicely back to running. They put me in the main ward after a few days when I was more stable. Again, so many amazing times. I had a tube into my lungs to drain the blood off, and I had a catheter in because I couldn't move. So, you know, 2 bags, one of piss, one of blood, hanging off the side of my bed. And I'm like, wow, I'm alive. And in that moment, I was like, yeah, this is pretty fucking cool. This could have been way different, you know? And I thought to myself, I was like, fuck, that race, those races, I wasn't gutted that I couldn't race. I was more gutted that I actually couldn't move. You know, I was in this bed, and I was like, the races, they'll always be races. And this is when people get injured. Oh, but that race, guys, there's going to be races forever. There is not going to be races. No matter what you race, there's going to be races. I know you wanted to do it this year, but relax, there's always going to be races. So I didn't, you know, I knew that the races would be there, but I was like, I don't want to ride a bike. Like, I don't want to ride it. I don't want to be in this position again. And I sent a message to a friend of mine, and I guess this is the endurance community. It's quite messed up, isn't it? People just send silly things around here and there. And one of my friends 2 weeks earlier, and this is where I think there's a few reasons, and I'll go to a couple of them why things happen for a reason. But a few weeks earlier, a friend of mine sent me a route across Corsica, which is, to cross Corsica, you can run across it, and it's about 195 kilometers, which is just over 100 miles. And it's rumored, or it was rumored, to have about 10,000 meters of elevation. And they normally hike the route. And I was like, fuck that. We were in hospital, and I was like, I sent a message to a friend of mine, and I was like, he was a teacher at the time. He now works for me as a coach. And I said, when do you finish school for summer? He's like, 30th of June. I said, sweet. 2nd of July, we're going to run across Corsica. It's like, mate, you can't move. You're in hospital, this, that. And I was like, it's okay, mate. We'll do it. And I sort of latched onto that. And as I latched onto that, I also read quite a lot of books. I like reading to try and learn things. And one of the books again, things just come your way, don't they? And I came into Dean Karnazes's book, which was 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states. And I was like, this is so cool. And we get to, what happened first? No, it was before we went to Corsica. I put in my, like, there's this thing in Dubai called Dubai 30-30. Ironically, it's on right now, which is an initiative from the government to do 30 minutes of exercise a day for 30 days from like 25th-ish of October till about the 25th-ish of November, every year, same time. And I was like, I can do what Dean Karnassus did. It's easy. I can run a marathon every day for 30 days. And I was like, that would be so cool. And I kept it in my mind, and I called the guys at the government, and this guy's on the other end just going like, what are you talking about? And he's like, this is for sedentary people to try, like, it's 30 minutes a day. And you've probably got the tone of how my personality is right now. And when he said that, I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's 30 minutes a day for people who are sedentary, but I'm going to do something so extreme. I'm going to run a marathon every single day. It's going to inspire them even more. And it's going to be the best of the best that you've ever had, and I've got my full sales pitch on, and it wasn't a video call. They weren't cool then. It was on a phone call. And I was just like, this guy's just going like this, like, what are you doing? Anyway, I managed to get through to the sort of guy above him, which I'm not proud of, but I am also proud of. And he said, Marcus, that sounds like a great idea. I'll make sure it goes through. So we hop over to Corsica. And one of the reasons why I love the guy that I called is because he's just so positive and everything's fantastic. And he completely fucked the route up in Corsica. And it wasn't 10,000 meters of elevation. It was close to 14,000 meters of elevation. And we ended up finishing it in like 5 days with torches from iPhones, because we didn't take head torches because it was just such a nightmare. Anyway, so I'm on this sort of roll to recovery, and honestly,
how long after your surgery was this?
So I was
after you crashed. Sorry.
So I was hit on the 10th of February, and this is where. And then I ran in Corsica on like the 2nd of July, and the plan was to do the 30 marathons in October. So about 8 months after my crash. And it's weird, right? And if people don't believe me, you can go back to my Instagram, go to the 9th of February, 2018, and because I think I'm a bit of a motivational prick, and I'm not really, but I try and think of good stuff and put it out there. I put this quote out that day, and I'd written, everything happens for a reason. I'd written that on the 9th of Feb, and I got hit by a truck and hit a brick wall and nearly lost my life on the 10th of Feb.
Wow.
So I don't know. There's things that happen, and you could say they happen for a reason. I think the key is not to get too caught up in what that reason is. The reason will come eventually. We're often, and I say this to a lot of people I work with or I chat to, we like answers because answers make us feel comfortable, but we don't often like a lot of questions because those questions make us feel uncomfortable. But we need questions and we need answers, but we don't need to worry about timelines of them. Everything gets answered eventually, which
just
is
how impatient you are.
It just depends how much of a rush you're in. And I was sat there in hospital, and it took me a few days to be able, like, I couldn't move. My left side was, as I said, when you break a scapula and 7 ribs, you don't move very much. And it took me a few days to get a hold of my phone. And I looked at this post and I was like, I don't need to know what the reason is right now. It'll figure itself out. And I guess it probably started quite an amazing journey for me of maybe accelerated self-awareness and self-discovery. And I'm super proud of that year. On the 24th of November, I ran my 30th back-to-back marathon, and it was a wild experience. And then 10 days later, it was my 40th birthday. And when you look at that year, it's hard not to think it was just an amazing year, because I have a crash, which I survive, and gives me so many learnings. I then change a little bit direction from the cycling goal and go to running. I was able to visit 15 schools. I can't remember all the numbers off my head. I should have prepared them, but I have something like 40 people run a marathon with me as their first marathon, and all this insanely positive stuff happens. And not only from when I was doing the marathons, but in the years after, I've been able to take that story and take it to people. And that was the 40th year of my life. Like, it's hard to look at that year and go, well, that was shit.
Yeah, because what came out of it was so good.
Was so good.
A lot of people would though think.
Yeah.
So I've no doubt. Listen to you. There's something strong and deep and special within you, Marcus. It brings me to our first secret question of today, that's come from Karen Nichol. Okay. Now and again, we'll approach people. We've got guests coming on, and you've mentioned Keith and you've mentioned Karen, so you can probably guess where the second secret question is coming from later. But from Karen, and I can see it on your shirt and on your hat, the InnerFight company slogan is "Show no weakness." And what you've just described about 2018, you live that as well, what you've described. Where did "Show no weakness" come from, and what does it mean to you?
This is a really good question. Thanks for asking it, John. And it's funny, isn't it? Because times change. And when I first put this on the t-shirt, it literally meant, and I apologize to anyone who might take offense to this, but it meant stop being such a fucking pussy. Now, when I put that out today, people are, oh, you can't say that, and it's not politically correct. But that's like, stop fucking whinging that it's raining. Stop complaining about trivial stuff in a more PC way that my mum would be more proud of me for. Stop complaining about trivial stuff that you have zero control about. It doesn't mean bang your chest and run through a brick wall. That's just stupid. It doesn't mean keep going, destroy your legs so that you can't walk properly again with no meaning. That is just stupidity. We are rank amateurs, remember, who go to work on a Monday for the most part. But it means stop whinging about the shit that actually doesn't really make a big difference, and go and live your life.
Brilliant. I think what you've described about 2018, I find that quite remarkable. I'm glad Mel asked about the timeline from early in the year to the 30 marathons, but it's also important, I think, for people to have an example they can reference, and you've given that to back up that show no weakness. But I wasn't expecting it to be such a simple answer. Stop being a pussy. I wasn't expecting that, and I love that. I love simple.
I genuinely apologize to anyone who takes offense to that. It's not, I understand it's not very PC. I understand the world's changed, but one of our brand values is honesty. So when people ask me, I just, again, I just talk. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, no. One of the most recent ultra marathons that ran in Scotland was the Jedburgh Three Peaks Ultra, and one of their mantras is "Don't be a dick." So it's along the same life lessons or life rules as that. Thank you so much.
We're aligned.
Yeah, cool. Oof. Mel, come on in.
What with?
Anything you like?
I thought you had another question.
That's a secret question. We always give the guests a wee break. Actually, we've never had to. This is groundbreaking, trailblazing this episode. So,
I would just like to ask if your cycling accident put you off cycling at all, and if it didn't, how long after the accident was it when you got back onto the bike?
So, with all grief, we have to pass through the stages. We have to have denial. We have to have bargaining. We have to have depression. We have to have anger. Anger comes after denial. And until we go through those, only then can we come to acceptance. Some people say there's 7 stages. I'm a bit of a simple dude. I like 5. 5 work with me. So 3 weeks after I got out of hospital, I set up the turbo trainer in the gym and I got back on the bike. And it was stupid. It was really stupid. I had my bib shorts on, which for those of you that don't know, the shorts come up and they're like straps across the shoulders. And I literally had to intertwine my hand into the bib shorts because it was so painful, and just hold with one hand and sit super upright. And I obviously thought I would bounce back very fast. And I was in denial of the fact that this crash, I'd had the experience in hospital where I was going to run and I didn't really want to ride much, but I think I was in denial of the fact that I needed to have a break from cycling. And to fully feel, and I got off the turbo that day, and I probably went and had a cry in the corner because it was brutal. And that was my point of no longer being in denial, that I had to relax on the bike. It then took me probably over 2 years to feel comfortable riding a bike.
Was that indoors or outdoors then?
Outdoors.
Outdoors.
Indoors, I went back to the turbo, but outdoors, and we have great cycle tracks here in Dubai. There's no cars, nothing.
No hills.
No hills. It's very flat.
Yeah.
Everything's perfect. But the subconscious is like a hard drive, and it stores pictures. And sometimes it lets you see the pictures. Sometimes it just puts the pictures in your mind and forces them out, basically. And I was riding and I would just see my crash in my face. And I would look at someone's wheel and I wouldn't even be close to it. And I would just shit myself and have to go far away. And anyone a little bit jittery in the group, which would never have fazed me before, I was just seeing things, or just like feeling these almost like flashbacks, sometimes without visions. And yeah, so it took, but I knew that I had to train through it with a little bit of awareness. So I didn't think it was the right thing to stop riding. So I'd go and ride a bit more, but just be aware. And similar to what we sort of were talking about towards the top of the show was, understanding and journaling a little bit, like, how did that feel? And why do I think I was feeling that way? And almost like, what do I want to do about that? But yeah, it took some time. And then in 2020, I had another crash, and, had another crash in June and broke 2 ribs and popped a lung on the other side. So
at least you've got matching sides.
Yeah.
What about with the running after you crashed then? Did you manage to get back into that pretty quick?
Yeah, so it's funny because that was one of the things I loved the most. When I was in the hospital, they give you what they call I think they call it a spirometer. So what we're trying to do is the lung has collapsed, and what we're trying to do is open it up. So this thing, and it's soul destroying at the start. I've still got some videos of it. It's just like a little ball, and as you suck air in, the ball goes up, and on this tube that sits in front of you. It's like a flow meter, a peak flow meter for people that would know those related to asthma. And yeah, they presented it to me the second day I was in the main ward, and literally I can't get this ball anywhere, like off the bottom of this thing. And so it's gamified immediately, right? And it's like, okay, what's the most I can do of this before it's dangerous? That's the mindset. It's like, I know that if I do too much, it's going to be dangerous. So I speak to the what do they call him? The guy that I can't remember. The guy that took care of my lungs was a different guy that took care of my shoulder and this, that, and the other. And he said, no, you can do it like X many times a day. So I'm just like drilling it every day, that many times. The ball's going up and up and up and up. And literally, like, it makes this, it's like a child's toy. It makes this like rattling noise. And because I was at home a lot and Holly's there, she's like, and she can't be angry at me, and it's so I did a shit ton on that. And I think this is one of the other sort of biggest learning, but I'll answer that question and I'll go back to a learning that I was going to share. It took a few months for me to feel like I didn't have to have surgery, but it took months for the ribs to come back together. I think I ran something decent about 3 months later, but still with like some pain in the lungs when I'd taken a massive breath. So it was almost like, for all the nerds out there, of which I'm definitely one of them, it was like low zone 4 kind of stuff. If you go higher than that, try to go to zone 5, you're in trouble. So heart rate not too high, so you don't need too much oxygen. But I sometimes skip, which I've done today actually, like those small things. And I had one physio session in the hospital, and then I saw one physio to get them to make sure, and this is a little bit related to what we're talking about coaching. I got them to make sure that I was structurally sound. Everything else I did on my own.
Mhm.
And I did it all on feel, but I did thousands of reps. And that's as simple as just taking my arm and lifting my hand up to shoulder height. And I do that 100 times a day, 200 times a day. And I remember going to the gym, and this is quite a good one for anyone who's struggling. Sometimes it pushes them over the edge, but normally it helps people. I set up my phone timer to use the Tabata system, which is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. And I used to set it up for 100 rounds of Tabata, which at that point was literally, I got a 2-inch mat, and all I was doing was stepping up off the floor onto the mat and back down as one of the exercises. And then another exercise would literally be front arm raises with no dumbbells, with nothing, and never allowing my good arm, my right arm, to go higher or faster than my broken arm, my left arm. So I did a absolute shit ton of rehab. It's quite funny. Like, a lot of people go, oh, it's so amazing. Like, you had your crash in February and, you ran those marathons in November. Your body just must have healed so fast. It's like, sometimes I just, you're an absolute muppet. You know nothing. I was
Put in the
so,
work.
yeah, and it wasn't just that, Mel. It was sleep. Like, I was anal with sleep, and my wife Holly is an amazing cook, and she cooks like super healthy food the whole time. It was making sure that was all in place so that my body would actually heal in the right way. And not only that, then it was about environment. Am I in the right environment? Is anyone in my environment making me feel not good? Is there any negativity in that environment? Some days I'd just go to my gym when I knew it was going to be busy and there's a real good vibe and a real good flow of energy. And I'd just pull up a chair and sit there and watch people work out, because that made me feel so much better, and
Yeah,
I've,
being
I've
around other
never,
people that are trying to better themselves, and then
yeah,
you're in that, your brain's in that mindset as well then, isn't it?
exactly. And
Mm.
if you bring that back to what hopefully the audience are looking for and stuff, people are looking to get better at running, but it's not the running. Like, again, it's all of these other things that, people come, want to run 10K, but I'm not very good at running. Well, maybe the reason why you're not very good at running is because you don't sleep very well, you know, and it's sometimes hard to bridge that gap if you're just a bit of a pure running coach, I guess, because that's the thing as well. A lot of running coaches, which I fully agree with, they don't want to get involved in all this other shit. And that's cool. Like, they're real good at figuring out how to make people go fast for 10K, and they want you to come to them when you've got your shit in order, or they want you, like most of the population is doing, just to numb that other shit for the time being. Like, no emotion is better, you know, but I want the emotion to come out because that's real life, you know,
Problem
and
solving.
yeah, you know, just addressing what's holding you back. And this is the biggest thing with chronic injuries. Chronic injuries, for the most part, are probably, yes, they are related to running. It would be incorrect if I said it's not related to running, but most of them are related to something else in life. Absolutely sure.
You mentioned about learnings, and I think what you've described there about, and thank you so much for articulating how important it is. It's not just about putting on a pair of shoes and going out for a run. It's about the environment. It's about sleep is so vital. So many people struggle with, but don't do anything about that. So that's a massive thing. And it's about the work that you've put in. But you did mention, is that the learnings you were talking about, Marcus, or was there something specific you wanted to mention about learnings?
No, that really is the key, you know. It's everything. Like when I was in hospital, I didn't have any of the hospital food. When I was in hospital, people wanted to come and see me, and I said yes every single time. To the point where some days Holly was like, "Far out, I haven't had any time with you on my own today." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but the energy that these guys give me is also huge. Like what she gives me is unparalleled." But they were able to come and give that energy. So, and that's what I mean when I spoke again at the top of the show about like holistically ready. It's no point in being amazingly conditioned to run if these other pillars of your life are in absolute turmoil. You'll get a result. You will get a result. And you know, a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, I know a load of top runners and, you know, their shit's not in order. Absolutely. A lot of very good athletes are numb. And that's why they're able to do what they do, because there is no relationship with anything, and they're able to block things. They're able to stay in a state of denial and just keep drilling themselves. And that's how they become so much better. And that's how they become the 1% and actually make money from it. But if you're not going to be that 1%, which when 99% of us are not going to be that 1%, it's about being in touch. So that really, John, is the biggest thing. Being in touch with all those things and being almost a little bit obsessive and addicted to those small details and how much they matter. Like, if you know, for some people, listening to this podcast before they go to bed is the wrong thing to do, because they will, hopefully some people will have a lot to write down or a lot to think about, you know. So who's thinking about, like, this is what I work on with my performance clients, is like, what does the end of the day look like? And it comes back to what we're saying, that wind down. When does wind down start? You know, manage these. There's so many different areas of performance that we can work on. And yes, sometimes it can become stressful considering different pillars of performance. But if we want better life, if we want to wake up, double backflip, fuck yeah, let's get it, then we have to put in that work in those areas of life. And we have to get a little bit OCD about some things.
And just to confirm, great example about somebody talking the talk but also walking the walk. Marcus refused to record this episode at a later time than I originally suggested.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I love it, because what you've just said is you're living your life that way. You know, you're making decisions that will make you holistically ready, or contribute to that. I love that. It's probably time for our second secret question, and that comes from Mr. Keith Russell, and it links
This
in.
guy.
Yeah. Oh, he gave me three, but I'm only going to ask you one, right?
Okay.
But I think it's really relevant. It's one that it was similar to a question that we had, but Keith's words, and I quote, "How does it feel to see his athletes execute a training plan that you've set out and succeed in that goal?" That's Keith's question markets.
It's hard to explain that because I've never used recreational drugs, but everyone tells me that they're incredible and they give you something that you don't get in normal life. Now, it's maybe not the best way to describe it, but that feeling is like something that you don't get in normal life. To be able to have worked with someone, no matter how far or for how long or through what, when you're able to be a small part in making that human's life better in some way, it's insane. Like, I was there when Keith ran 89 backyard loops in Germany, and I purposely went over, and I find it, because I'm also working on myself. I'm also numb in a number of areas, and I was brought up in the way that I was brought up. I went to a boarding school, and emotion was shut down. I'm trying to get out a lot more emotions, and for some, like, that was just a unique feeling, seeing him at that race. All the hours that I knew he'd put in, hard conversations, and because I know Keith's story so well, and I try to know all of my athletes and all of the people that I coach, I try to know their stories as good as I can. But sometimes that takes, like, I've had Keith with me now 6 years. It does take a lot of time, especially when we don't see each other often. To be honest, the first time I met Keith in person was at that race, and I'd already been working with him for 3 years or 4 years. But the feeling is it's just so hard to describe, John, because you've been able, I always see it as an absolute privilege to be asked to look at a situation with someone. And that's how I see the first step. Like, someone will reach out to me and I'm like, I would love to have a look at this situation. And that's what happened with Kaz. She's like, I said, like, I don't know if I can help you, and then I have a very curious side to me, and human performance is where I'm most curious. So when someone reaches out, I'm like, this could be interesting. Like, what's actually going on here, and what are the moving parts? And then I'm trying to sort of connect the dots. But I live in my world, in my life, and these people live in their world, in their life. So the fact that we can somehow bring these two closer together, and that's even with people that I see often here in my hometown in Dubai, like the fact that we can come close together and achieve something that I believe is, and they believe, so there's two of us, which when there's two, it's not just a chance, is making them better human beings. It's just, mate, it's fucking magic. It really is, and it's insane to think that it's actually my job, but I never look at it as a job. It's just, it's a privilege, and it's something that I'm grateful for every day. And if I look back in my journal, a lot of days, big wins of the day, there's 3 in there. Most days, one will be around a client and what they've done. And Kaz recently as well, she came with a goal. I want to be on the GB team. Like, and then, she goes through this foot surgery and she's like, I don't know if I'll be able to ever run again. And that was one of the actual legit outcomes of the surgery. And I'm like, well, let's just see, let's just go from one step to the other. And you know, and then we've obviously just had the satellite champs, and Andrew was very similar. You know, this guy, he ran 32 yards last year, and we work a year, and he's, you know, he ran 60 and he's fresh. Were your legs okay? Yeah, mate. It's like, you know, and it's, but it's not me, it's those people.
Yeah, they're putting the work in.
They're
You're just
putting the
guiding
work.
them.
You're just guiding them. You're just a
Yeah.
mirror, and and I make so many mistakes, and I say so many of the wrong things at the wrong time. And you know what communication's like these days? Like, you think you're being a funny prick sending a WhatsApp, and it's just not funny at all for them, you know? That's why a lot of the time I try and do voice notes, because at least I can just give my shit personality a little bit more into it. But you know, you make so many mistakes, and there's no, and the problem with a lot of athletes these days is paralysis by analysis, information overload, all of those sort of cliches, you know, and so when we get it, and when we get them through something that I know that they are proud of, and I know that's life changing, and has sort of, you know, has really helped me as well. And that's I coach people around, like, this is a little trade secret, but I'll share it with you guys. I have 7 pillars to my coaching, and I actually measure my athletes. It's quite subjective, but I just give them a score 1 to 3 on these 7 pillars. And I do it every 6 months or so, sometimes a little bit more often. So they can get a total of 21 points, or they generally wouldn't get less than about 10, to be honest. Otherwise, I wouldn't be working with them. But, you know, and they're very subjective things, but it's things like, do I believe that they get what we're trying to do, which is to make people better at life? Do their goals resonate with me? Am I excited to coach them? You know, if you're a coach and listening to this, or if you're an athlete and listening to this who has a coach, just ask your coach, how excited are you when you come to write my program? Like, that's a legit question that you should be asking your coach, because if they're not excited, like, Tuesdays is generally my day. So tomorrow, generally my day that I'm programming, and I don't have any other meetings in, and I'm fully fired up. And if I go to write someone's program in Training Peaks and I'm not excited, I make a note of it. And if I'm not excited the next week, I make a note of it. And then the third week, I'll action something. Why am I not excited? I'm trying to create this feeling. So I think that's really, really, really important. The other things that are important to me is that the athlete, the client, teaches me something. It's a two-way relationship, right? And this is what I said it for the first lady that I coached. I'm like, I've got this skill set. I'm going to use that, but we're going to have to learn some other things. And I'm happy to go away and upskill and learn. We can always learn. So a client or an athlete that teaches me something is great. A client or athlete that challenges me is what I want as well. Like, a lot of stuff is simple, you know, for the most part. Writing a run program takes 0 time, but it's all the other bits that we're speaking about that are key. And the 7th pillar that I always measure on is come back to, really, to your question as well, John, is, are we getting, as 2 human beings, better at life? And those races, those achievements, and what these guys give me, mate, is huge. You know, I've waffled a lot there, but hopefully you understand how I feel about it. It's nuts.
Brilliant answers. Honestly, the whole episode has been brilliant answers. And I'm going to have to leave the door open, because you've got to come back, because we've got so much more to speak about.
I would love to.
The three of us can talk, you know?
A little bit.
Yeah. I love it. But thank you so much for that. What I'm going to do, Mel, I'm going to come to you to adopt your Stevie Boy persona, to bring in the dialect dictionary. Let's do that. Okay?
All right.
But what I'm going to do, Marcus, is please leave that door open and we can come back. Because I know,
I'd love to.
I can guarantee there'll be people listening in, who will probably have to listen to this episode 2 or 3 times because there's a lot of content in here, but it will also have them asking questions of themselves, asking questions of their coaching relationships as well, and what's going on. So maybe we can leave that door open and at some point ask people if they've got any questions for Marcus Smith. Maybe we could do that. But Mel,
amazing.
Yeah, Mel, on you go with your dialect dictionary.
Yeah, so one thing that they normally do at the end of each episode is ask whoever's on the podcast for a word or a phrase from either one from where you're from originally, or obviously you've emigrated out of God's county of Yorkshire for some reason to Dubai. No idea why.
No idea, yeah.
So either a word or phrase that's either from Yorkshire where you're from or in Dubai, that's something that sticks with you.
Yeah, this is a good question. I think I have to be a little bit commercial on this one and use the words that are under InnerFight on my logo, which is show no weakness. I think that's the commercial one. But I think the more, well, not the more, but one that's probably a little bit of a something that's actually working with me a lot more and with athletes. I actually learned this in Kenya. We've been going to Iten in Kenya for the last 4 years, and they use a phrase and it's spelt pole, but they pronounce it pole, which just means slowly.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, the reason why that is important, and I mentioned it earlier, there's always going to be races. We're increasingly in a rush, and we won't all live forever, but I hope that a lot of us will live for quite a few more years. And I don't think we need to keep being in a rush. So when you feel like it's getting a bit heavy, pole, slowly. And that's actually a race strategy that I gave to an athlete just recently. And she ran a really good time in the marathon. I just wrote a message to her, pole until it's time, and then just fucking send it. And that was
pole, full send.
Yeah, literally, mate. And she's like, that was actually exactly what I needed. I was like, well, it could have gone both ways. So yeah, they're my phrases.
I think they're both going in. An entry under S for show no weakness is going in, and also a fantastic entry under P for poly. I love that. It's a life thing as well as running. It's a life thing. Just chill, it'll come. It'll come. I've got to say, man, your voice just soothes my soul as well. The way you speak, that's brilliant.
Very kind.
So I'm publicly stating that I'm getting where Karen comes from. Karen's had this conversation with me, and I'm getting it. Our last question for now, Marcus, is for an entry into volume 9 of the Young Hearts Run Free La Buff playlist. This will be the first entry from a guest. So what are you going to share with our listeners?
I've got 2 here. Just how I had 2 before. I'm greedy, yeah? I have to
Go for it.
Careful. So this might resonate with some listeners who have done Marathon des Sables, MDS, and every single morning on the start line, you've got 1,000 people lined up, and they basically play Highway to Hell, AC/DC over and over. And you never hear the song the same again. It is mental. And my second one, which kind of, I guess people will understand, links in with how I see things and how I see life, is Times Like These by the Foo Fighters. And the one that was released by BBC during COVID has stuck with me strongly for, well, what are we, 4 years now. So yeah, I think that's a great song, and I think it works in a number of scenarios.
Cool. I don't think we've got the Foo Fighters potentially not AC/DC on any playlist so far. So we can add both of them in. And I think, you know what, coming from the African thing, both Mel and I think we're hoping for Hakuna Matata to come in for a
Oh, I
song
love
choice.
That's my go-to race tune. When things
Yeah.
get tough, headphones go in, Hakuna Matata's on.
Really? Yeah,
time.
that's cool. That's cool
Brilliant.
It's a
too.
good one.
Brilliant. Right, Mel, this is your wee warning to get a few words in your head to say cheerio to Marcus, but I'll do that first to give you a wee minute just to think about what you're maybe wanting to say. Marcus, I have thoroughly enjoyed this chat. Some chats seem like they've been going on for 5 or 10 minutes. This is one of these. It's just flowing in. And you've been so, you did warn us you could talk before we
I
started.
told you. I'm really sorry.
And you have, but what you've given us is such rich content that I'm sure I will have to go back and listen to a number of things. One thing that's been in my head all the way through this, and I don't know if it's a question I've ever asked myself, did I live my life today? I love that question, and I think it's a question that everybody will start asking themselves. I love the bit about talking about journaling, and how you're doing that as well. And I read a lot of things. I like affirmations. I get a lot of affirmations, and I like to think about things on a daily basis. I tend to do most of my stuff in the morning. I sometimes forget about the evening thing, but you've given me a nudge to start thinking about that as well, because it builds into the whole cycle of a day. But talking about InnerFight, talking about your 2018, man. I was going to say miraculous, magnificent. There's so many words I could use to describe that, but the way you described it was fantastic. So thank you for that, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the work you do with your athletes as well. It's been brilliant, Mel.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks. A lot of things that you said resonated with me with recovery from various different things as well. I really liked listening to you talk about it. I'm a little disappointed you've emigrated from Yorkshire because I just didn't think anybody ever left here. But I can see why you would do, because it's obviously a little warmer in Dubai.
Yeah, I'm not tough enough anymore, Mel.
Oh yeah, we are tough here. We are tough.
Exactly.
So yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
No, not at all, guys. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and it's always great to talk to like-minded people who are also very good at listening, which you both were, because it's actually very easy to talk. It's quite hard to listen. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
No problem.